Hello and welcome, my dear viewers, to another messed up story for tonight. Because unless you haven't noticed, hell is empty, and has been for some time, for all the evil ones are walking here amongst us. The story of tonight acts as an example of why you shouldn't go to your neighbors asking them for candy. That is, if you know what's good for you. Tonight's story also comes to us courtesy of Ni-chan, a Japanese anonymous message board forum, which means it's a coin toss as to whether or not it's true. But you must know that already. Before we start though, a bit of context. The story that OP shared on Ni-chan forums happened during the Setsubun festival. Setsubun is a festival that is held one day before the beginning of the spring, according to the Japanese lunar calendar. During the festival, amongst many other activities, kids usually make cute oni masks and play with each other pretending to be onis. Oni is a Japanese word for a demon, usually a cute and a funny one, looking like ogre character, while other kids were supposed to chase the oni away from the house by throwing beans at him to bring good luck. Also, over the years, the Setsubun festival must have gotten mixed up with the American Halloween festival, which happens during autumn. Thus, during Setsubun, kids started going door to door, wearing oni masks and asking people for candy as a tribute, so the oni wouldn't haunt their homes this year. So buckle up, folks. This one is going to be proper weird and creepy. Hello there, my fellow Ni-chaners. I'm not sure which board would be right for me to post this particular incident, so I figured the infamous random board would be as good as any. It serves as a reason as to why I have become wary of the Setsubun festival. This incident happened in my hometown where I live to this day, in the city of Takayama, in the mountainous Gifu prefecture. It never got reported in the local or nationwide news. Trust me, I checked. Which is disturbing, especially since people died. Then again, this happened in the 90s, so maybe that's the reason. How do I know about this, you may ask? Well, this literally happened next door, as to where I live. There were a bunch of cops and a lengthy investigation too. Bunch of people were interviewed by the cops, myself included, over the coming weeks. It was a very stressful situation. I am posting this on Ni-chan anonymous message board right now in hopes of reaching out to others from Gifu prefecture or surrounding area who may have heard of this incident, to confirm that I didn't just imagine the whole thing in my head all those years ago, and hopefully to find other anons who could either confirm or deny whether this incident was ever reported in the news. It happened during the Setsubun festival, a fun and harmless activity with kids just having fun during a traditional holiday festival. That is, until the grown-ups got involved, trying to join in on the fun and inevitably ruin everything for everyone. This all started with a late evening and a bunch of local drunkards in their early 40s and the alcohol. Of course, someone was drinking. That is how all the tragic and scary stories start. It was true 30 years ago, and it is no doubt still true to this day. As the raindrops fell from the grey and cloudy evening sky in the city of Takayama, 4 people were drinking together and having fun in their light-hearted sake-fueled debauchery. 2 males and 2 females. The victim, we'll call him A. He was visiting a friend with his wife during the Setsubun festivities. After becoming sufficiently drunk, and thus kinda bored, A had decided to partake in the revelry of the festival that was happening that day. Whether the motivation for this was pure drunkenness, or was it that A did it as a prank, or did his bottle friends offer the idea, or was it a dare? The motivations for A's actions are unknown. What is known are the grim consequences and the outcome of this nonsense. Donning a noni mask, which he must have bought earlier that day, A opened the door and bravely stepped out into the rain outside. He ventured out across the street to one of the nearby houses, intending to spread his cheerful festive mood. And what do you know? A few minutes later, and A had returned, not just with a smile, but with a smile and a handful of sweets to boot. 10 minutes later, a few more shots of sake were drunk. Drunken banter was exchanged between the friends, and then A donned the mask again and set out once more to visit the same neighbours. This time he returned without sweets. Some more sake shots were drunk, while A discussed this with his friends. Despite warnings from his wife, he prepared to venture out for a 3rd time. However, his friends intervened, urging him to stay indoors. Ignoring the advice, A pushed his friends aside as he stepped out into the courtyard and became the unfortunate victim of the crime. This time, when he returned to his friend's place, he brought back no sweets. Clutching his neck wound, he collapsed through the door and remained motionless on the ground. A's throat was stabbed, and a pool of blood was gushing from his wound as he gargled and choked on his own blood, straddling the boundary between the life and death. Naturally, the ambulance was called, and while his friends valiantly tried to bandage and seal the wound, it was of no use. It was no use. A passed away before the ambulance arrived. Of course, the investigation was soon launched. Like I said, the police made a big fuss and interrogated pretty much the entire district. Such crime in our city must have been the first in a decade, hence all the fuss. And get this, the house where A supposedly went, it was soon discovered to have been empty, vacant. The interior was dilapidated, the windows were dirty, closed shut, and the interior of the house itself looked like a violent and tragic crime scene. As far as the owner of the property was concerned, the place was empty, nobody was living there. After the tragic incident that happened in that property some 4 years ago, the owner tried numerous times unsuccessfully to rent out the property, but apparently the house became haunted, and the tenants wouldn't last there for more than a few days. Eventually the owner gave up on the place and just let it rot. As the police discovered, the door was unlocked, but the owner insisted that after the last tenant he changed the lock and the key, and that he didn't give the key to anyone. He himself was on the opposite side of the country during the day of the incident and had zero motivations to commit the slaying, which means somehow someone must have gotten inside the apartment and then waited there, as if especially for A, until he would come, so that they could stab him in the throat. How did these people knew that A would even show up there, or anyone else for that matter? So far as I know, the killer or killers of A still roam free, and since this happened in the early 90s, the statute of limitations most likely already have passed anyway, and thus the killers have gotten away with it scot-free. Unless, that is, it was ghosts who did it. It creeps me out that just next door where I live, such a horrible incident happened. Anyway, hopefully you guys found my post noteworthy. Sorry for the gloomy post. Had to vent. Also, if you heard or have read some info about this incident in Gifu Prefecture, do let me know in the comments.